On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers beat the Denver Nuggets in one of their most impressive wins so far this season. We'll talk about the defense that got them there, the spread out scoring attack, and so much more on today's Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like 92.3 The Fan, my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, and a few other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating, leave a nice review, be a friend, tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. You're proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Of course, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. The Cleveland Cavaliers on Thursday night beat the Denver Nuggets 126-114. I thought this was one of the most impressive wins the Cavs have had so far this season, and it is their 20th win. I don't know that it's the most impressive one. I still might give the nod to the blowout win they had over Golden State a few weeks back, but this was one of the most complete games the Cavs have played. The second quarter was not great, but the other three quarters were really, really impressive. And I want to start today by talking about the defense. And I talked about it on yesterday's show with Spencer. I've talked about it several times that the defense hasn't necessarily been at the championship level that I think it needs to be. On Thursday night, the Cavs defense I thought was really, really good. Was it perfect? No. I thought that they didn't defend in transition as well as they probably needed to. Denver had a massive number of points in the paint. I think they scored 76 of their 114 points in the paint, which is a huge number. But what the Cavs did so well, and part of this is because of the personnel that Denver has and the way that the Nuggets play, but what the Cavs did so well was defend the three-point line. I've been talking for, it feels like weeks, about that being the weakness of this defense, that they couldn't defend the three-point line, and that had been their Achilles heel, because it had been. Well, on Thursday night, it was the best they've defended the three-point line, I think, all season long. Denver doesn't take a ton of three-pointers as a team. That's just not how they're built. They're, I think, 30th in the league in attempts, but they do make a lot of three-pointers. Going into Thursday night, and I don't know if this number is updated, if they've dropped or whatever, but going into Thursday night, the Nuggets were third in three-point percentage. So they were shooting the ball really well from beyond the arc. They just weren't taking them at a super high volume. And the Cavs aren't a team that takes them at a super high volume either, but they make a lot of them. That's why it can be a real struggle for defenses, because a lot of the threes that teams like that do take, that are not high volume teams but shoot a high percentage, a lot of the threes that they're taking are really, really good looks. Well, Denver only took 24 threes against the Cavs on Thursday night. It's tied for their second lowest total of the season. They only made 6 of them. That is an outstanding performance by the Cavaliers defense. I thought they did a great job of knowing the personnel, right? Like, you think, okay, so who is a real threat from beyond the arc in Denver starting 5, let's just say. So Jamal Murray, you don't want to let him get good shots. Michael Porter Jr., you don't want to let him get good shots from outside. Nikola Jokic, you don't want him shooting threes necessarily. He's a good shooter, but he doesn't want to take those shots. He wants to do other things with the basketball in his hands, and he's not really a catch and shoot guy either. So defending him is certainly different. Aaron Gordon, you're fine taking threes. Christian Brown, you're fine taking threes. Russell Westbrook coming off the bench, you're fine if he's taking threes. And he made one, and like, that's going to happen. But the Cavs did a great job of knowing, okay, when Michael Porter Jr. gets the ball in a catch and shoot opportunity, Jamal Murray gets the ball there, we've really got to run those guys off the line. We have to close out really, really hard. The other guys, we're going to be fine with them shooting the basketball from beyond the arc. And the Cavs did that the best I've seen them do it all year. They knew Denver's personnel really, really well. They defended, I thought, really well. Jarrett Allen had a very strong game defensively. I thought George Niang had some really good minutes defensively against Nikola Jokic. And he's his stat line is absurd because he is an absurd basketball player. He is one of, if not the best basketball player in the world. So he's going to get his numbers, and that's fine. But the fact that he got his numbers, but the Cavs really prevented anyone else from having a good game. Like if you look up and down the roster for Denver, who else really had a good game? Michael Porter Jr. had more than 20, but was he really impactful? I didn't think so. Jamal Murray, I didn't think he had a good game. I thought the Cavs prevented everyone other than Nikola Jokic from having a good night offensively. So it's a huge victory for the Cavs to be able to play that type of game plan. Now, how easily can this translate to other games? Like when the Cavs play Charlotte on Saturday, a team that is so drastically different stylistically from what Denver is, where, Denver does not take a ton of threes. The Hornets, we saw them a couple weeks ago. They took over 50 threes against the Cavs. They're going to let it fly. That is something I'm very interested in seeing in the coming days, is how do they go from a team that only took 24. And I don't know that Denver was content with that. Like I bet they probably would have liked to have taken more threes, but I think that you're going from a team that's a low volume team as an opponent to a high volume team. There could be a bit of a shock there, but I thought that the plan the Cavs had defensively was really good. And I thought that the way they executed it was really good as well. And I talked earlier this week about there being some signs that the Cavs defense is trending in the right direction. It's not where it needs to be yet, but it's getting closer and closer and closer. And I thought that Thursday night was another step in that direction. So their last 4 games, the last week of basketball, you go to, from last Wednesday, that just hideous loss to the Atlanta Hawks, where I thought that was the worst game the Cavs have played all year, to now. So 4 games. You've got 2 games with Atlanta, a game with Boston, a game with Denver, and Washington too. So 5 games, sorry. The Cavs are 3rd in defense. Not necessarily where you want to be, but it's progress. It's much, much better than being 20th defensively the way they were in the month of November. I will be very interested to see when the month of December comes to a close. So we still have obviously a few weeks before that happens, but I will be very interested to see how the Cavs rank defensively this month, because I do think they're playing more physical on that end of the floor. I think that they have closed out on shooters better, and I thought tonight was a great example of that. I think that they're doing a lot of the things that they, quite frankly, failed to do in November at a much better rate in December so far. The transition defense needs to improve. Denver had a ton of fast break points. That is where the Cavs really got hurt. They had 28 fast break points. That is a number that I don't think there are a lot of teams that are going to run quite as much in transition as Denver does. So that is something to think about. Okay, maybe that's skewed a little bit, considering Denver is, a top 10 team in pace too. They're 7th in pace, right ahead of the Cavs. So that might be skewed just a little bit up, that they really made an emphasis to get up and down in this game. But that was the one area defensively where you look and say, you know what, that could have been better. But I do think that's being even a little bit nitpicky. The Cavs had a great defensive game. They improved their defensive rating. I'm not sure exactly what the defensive rating was. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but they were really, really good on that end of the floor. And that is something to absolutely be encouraged by, because this came against a good offense. Their defensive rating was 101.2. And you can say what you want about the game against Washington boosting their defensive rating, because Washington is dead last in offense. And you can say what you want about having a good defensive rating in a loss against Atlanta in the game on Friday afternoon. You can look at those things and go, okay, well, how much do those performances against lesser teams put them higher up defensively? That's fair. But they've also had good defensive performances against Denver, who is, I believe, 7th in offense, and Boston, who is 3rd in offense, behind only New York and the Cavs. So they have had some pretty strong performances against some pretty good offensive units. Anytime that you can have a defensive rating at 101 against a unit led by Nikola Jokic, that's a really impressive effort, because that guy is so incredible with what he's able to do, how he's able to manipulate defenses. I just think the Cavs deserve a lot of credit because this wasn't a game. I talked about this about Friday's Cavs game, the second loss to Atlanta, where I didn't think the Cavs played bad offensively. I just thought they missed shots. I don't think that Thursday night was just a case of Denver missing shots. Like, I thought that this was a really, really strong defensive performance. Now, it has to keep up, and we will see if it does. But this is something that I do think is very encouraging. I think it's something that the defense might be starting to turn a corner. And I've said that for a few days now, but I was very impressed with the way that the Cavs played on that end of the floor on Thursday night. I was also very impressed with a few guys offensively. I want to talk about Caris LeVert. I want to talk about Evan Mobley. I want to talk about how the scoring was spread out. And the Cavs are kind of unpredictable on that end of the floor. So we're going to do that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up all the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up today at robinhood.com/gold. That's robinhood.com/gold, GOLD. Terms do apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. If you're watching on YouTube right now, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. The Cavs on offense, I thought looked really, really good for most of this game. The second quarter, they had a dip. I didn't think it was the best quarter of offense that they played, certainly, but the other three quarters, I thought they shot the ball really well. And Caris LeVert, I thought, was really impressive in this performance for the Cavs. Kenny Atkinson was asked about him prior to the game, and he said he just didn't quite know if Caris had his rhythm yet, that he thought that, coming off that knee injury, it was going to take a couple of games for him to find that rhythm, because before he missed time with the knee, he'd been awesome all season long for the Cavs. And Thursday night, he looked like that guy again. He hit 4 threes in the first quarter alone. He finished the night with 21 points, hit 5 threes. If Caris LeVert is going to be that guy off the bench, which this year, and I know that there are a lot of Cavs fans that feel as if he's not consistent enough, and at times he hasn't been. And I do think part of that has been he's had to bounce between roles quite a bit in his first few seasons in Cleveland, but I think he's got a lot of clarity on what his role is right now with this team. I think that's been a big boost to his game. But if the Cavs get this version of Caris LeVert consistently, and there's no reason to think they won't, they become so much more difficult to stop, because they become a team that can attack other teams in so many different ways. And this really, I do think, accentuates their depth, because teams are going to, especially when we get to the postseason, teams are going to load up on Donovan Mitchell. Teams are going to have to try to do a lot of different things to stop Darius Garland. Evan Mobley's aggressiveness offensively, I'm going to talk about him in a minute too. He's going to cause headaches for other teams. And then when you get to the playoffs, the rotations usually shorten a little bit. But the Cavs have a bench right now, and Caris LeVert is the biggest part of this. The Cavs have a bench. They have how many? 3, 4 guys on the bench that are capable of scoring 20 points in any game, because Caris is. If Sam Merrill gets hot, he is. Ty Jerome has shown that he is. If Dean Wade is hot, he's capable of it. Now, we haven't seen a ton from Dean so far this year. He did hit a 3-pointer on Thursday night, his first one back since coming back from that ankle sprain. So the Cavs have a number of different weapons that they can bring off the bench that can really be helpful and really accentuate what the starters are able to do. And Caris LeVert, I think, is the most important guy in that group, because when he's got it going on, the defense never gets a break. So defenses look to capitalize, and it's not worked for the most part this year. When one of Darius or Donovan is on the bench, when Kenny Atkinson splits those two up, and the Donovan Mitchell minutes with Evan Mobley have definitely been more successful than the Darius Garland minutes with Jarrett Allen this year. But when Caris LeVert is out there with one of those pairings, it's so much more of a challenge for opposing defenses to stop them. And I think plus minus, and I agree with something former Cavs head coach JB Bickerstaff said a couple of years ago, that plus minus is not always the be all end all. Like, that is something that guys can sometimes use in contract negotiations. But I think it's something that works for Caris LeVert here. So as of right now, Caris LeVert is 8th in the NBA in true plus minus. So there are only 7 guys in basketball with a better plus minus than Caris LeVert. Plus minus is your teams, you're either outscoring or being outscored by the opponent when you're on the floor. So I think Caris is plus 174, but he's only played 17 games. Everyone ahead of him, except for Boston's Jaylen Brown, who is like 10 points ahead of him, has played more games than Caris LeVert. Jaylen Brown has also played 17 games. But Caris LeVert has played fewer minutes than Jaylen Brown, as you might imagine. Caris LeVert, of guys that have played at least 15 games this season, Caris LeVert has the best net rating. The Cavs are outscoring opponents by 17.9 points per 100 possessions that Caris LeVert plays. That, I think, is a very true stat. Like, plus minus doesn't always feel real. Sometimes it tells a story. Sometimes it doesn't. With Caris LeVert, I absolutely think it tells a story. I think that you see the impact that he has on the game on an every night basis when he's out there. He was a plus 17 off the bench on Thursday night. And you know what? It felt like it. The Cavs took over that first quarter when Caris LeVert checked in and made 4 threes in the 6 minutes that he played in the first quarter. That's the type of impact that not a ton of teams have coming off of the bench. So that is the one area that I look at and say, okay, that was, if the Cavs are going to get that regularly from him. I'm not saying he's got to score 20 points a night, because on this team, that's probably not a feasible thing. But if they're going to get that type of impact from him on a regular basis, they become so much more of a challenge to stop. The other thing that happened on Thursday night that I think is worth talking about is Evan Mobley shooting. He took 5 3-point attempts on Thursday against Denver. He made 3 of them, but taking 5 of them, I think, is the sweet spot for him. He's not had too many games this year where he's taken that many threes. He's been at a lower volume from beyond the arc this year than I thought he would, than I think a lot of people thought he would. I mean, he came into tonight averaging 2 3-point attempts per game. That's not a high volume shooter. That's a very low volume shooter. It's so low that teams are not going to, they're not going to alter their game plan for it. He had not taken more than 3 threes in any game. Now he takes 3 threes in most of his game, 2 or 3 threes in most of the games he plays. But 5, I think, is kind of where he should be. And he made 3 of them, which if he doesn't make 3 of them, okay, that's not the be all end all. But I liked the threes that he took. Donovan Mitchell mentioned one of the threes that he took was his favorite one. It was in the left corner. It was a true catch and shoot one, where we kind of see the catch and shoot threes for Evan. He's got a lot of time because of the way defenses are maybe not defending him or not closing out to him as hard. So because of that, he's got time to really set himself. He didn't have time on this 3. Like, he kind of was running to his spot in the left corner, caught it as he was getting there, and just went up and shot it, and it was pure. Those are the types of things. That is the next step in Evan Mobley's evolution. As he becomes a better shooter, as he becomes more comfortable with that range, as he becomes more confident in his stroke, those are the types of things that I think we can see more of from Evan. Now, are we going to see him running off pin downs and doing all that stuff? No, I don't think so. But seeing him be able to relocate and catch a pass and shoot as quick as he did there, I thought that was a really good thing. Kenny Atkinson actually said his favorite three that Evan took was one of the two that he missed, where it was one at the end of the shot clock. I mean, it was kind of a step back. It was like he had to shoot the ball. It was going to be a shot clock violation. And Evan missed it, but it was the confidence to go up and shoot it and kind of take like a one-legged step back. That's not necessarily something that you think of as Evan Mobley's as part of his repertoire. And maybe it never will be. But it was cool to see. It was cool to see him have the confidence to be able to do that. I think because that's going to be the next step for him. And it's important that the Cavs do get to see him take more three-pointers, because all that's going to do is open up the offense even more. And if you can find, if this Cavs offense, which is already great, it's third in the NBA right now, I believe. If you can find a way to add another layer to this already awesome offense, it becomes such a more difficult challenge for opponents. And I think that next layer is probably Evan Mobley's volume of three-pointers going up just a little bit. Now, Isaac Okoro left the game on Thursday night with a knee injury. We'll talk about him. Got an update on Max Strus and a little bit of an update on Emoni Bates too. We'll talk about the injuries for the Cavs next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. I tell you that all the time because it's true. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, NHL, NBA, whatever it is, all in one place. If you want the latest stats, live play-by-play, all on the same page where you place your bet, well, I have the place for you. That place is the FanDuel Sportsbook app and FanDuel.com. The Cavs, I told you for a long time, I'm sorry, I thought they had a better chance to win the NBA Cup. Didn't turn out that well, but I do like their odds as we look at this. I like their odds to win the Eastern Conference. They're at plus 550 right now to win the Eastern Conference. Boston, very heavy favorite. They're actually minus money to win the East at minus 105. So that means that you would have to bet $105 to win $100 on the Boston Celtics winning the East. That's not great value. What you want to do is maybe if you're looking for value, bet $100 on the Cavs to win the Eastern Conference. And if that comes true in late May, you get $550 back. That's great value because this Cavs team has been one of the best in the NBA. They have been. They are a true championship contender. And if you can get a true championship contender at those odds to win their conference, you just might want to do it. So if that sounds good to you, or maybe you just want to bet on the Cavs to beat the Charlotte Hornets tomorrow and get your first $5 bet, win $150, maybe that's a play for you too. I don't know. But visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Give us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review as well. So Isaac Okoro left the game with a left knee contusion. Played around 11 or 12 minutes in this game against the Denver Nuggets. Dean Wade started in his place in the second half. Isaac, I don't believe, ever came out of the locker room. Did not see him in the locker room after the game either. Kenny Atkinson was asked about him. Said he doesn't think it's something that is concerning. He said all indications are that it's nothing to be worried about. We'll see if he pops up on the injury report Friday afternoon when that injury report for Saturday's game against the Hornets comes out. That'll be an interesting thing to see if he's on there. It just feels like this Cavs team can't necessarily catch a break with having everyone healthy. I know, obviously, Max Strus has not yet played this year, so they've not been healthy for any games. But it seems like anytime somebody comes back, like Dean Wade came back the other night, now the potential for Isaac to, and I guess we had the scares with Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell the other night too. But the potential for Isaac to miss some time, you hope that he's healthy and nothing really happened, but we will see. We did get an update on Max Strus on Thursday before the game too. Kenny Atkinson was asked about him. He says Max has progressed to doing some contact work. I believe he said some 3-on-3 work, which means a return for Max Strus is getting closer. Now, Kenny did not want to share a target date for Max Strus's return. I don't know if there is one internally, but I believe that Max Strus will be playing basketball for the Cavs in the month of December. If there are no setbacks, I could see him playing before Christmas. I think that's probably the most likely outcome. But again, that's if there's no setbacks. I think that's around what the target date is, but the Cavs don't want to share that publicly right now. So we will see. But Max Strus is getting closer to playing. I would bet that he plays within the next couple of weeks. If nothing else, I expect him to be back on the floor at some point this month for the Cavs. Emoni Bates, the other one, has not played this year, had knee surgery in training camp, I believe it was. I think it was before preseason games started. Not played all year. He's been getting more and more work. Like we've seen him at the practice facility during shoot around or after shoot around, I guess, would be more accurate, getting shots up, working, doing 1-on-0 work with assistant coaches. And Thursday night was the first time I saw him getting pregame work in on the floor at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Now, I don't know if that's because he has progressed further in his rehab, or I don't know if it's because the Cavs canceled the shoot around on Thursday. I'm not sure which the answer was, but I just thought it was notable that we saw Emoni Bates getting pregame work in with members of the coaching staff before the Cavs took on the Denver Nuggets on Thursday night. So we don't know when he'll be back. I would venture to guess that we're not too far off from seeing him start to ramp up and play in some G League games with the Cleveland Charge as well. So that's where that all stands. Again, I think Max Strus is going to be back a little bit sooner than later. I don't think it's like this weekend or anything, or probably, I don't think it's this weekend. I will leave it that after that. We should probably find out a little bit more next week with the way the schedule is set up. The Cavs did add 2 more games to their schedule. They will now have the Washington Wizards at home next Friday, and they will have the Brooklyn Nets in Brooklyn Monday, December 16th. So that's another note that I did want to pass along. I don't know that I mentioned that on yesterday's show with Spencer or not, but thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today. And thank you to everyone out there that makes it your first listen every day. I've seen a lot of you tweet out the Spotify Wrapped. If you have your Spotify Wrapped, or if you're like me and you're an Apple person and you get your year in review from them, if Locked On Cavs is in there, I want to know. Tweet it at me, at Realty Cunningham on Twitter, or at Danny Cunningham on Blue Sky. I would love to know, or just tweet at Locked On Cavs. I see those mentions too. But I do appreciate everyone that listens every single day. Again, leave us a 5-star rating, say some nice words in review, help grow the show. Be a friend, tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest content from Locked On Cavs. Cavs this weekend take on the Charlotte Hornets and the Miami Heat, a road back-to-back. I will talk to you after those games about what goes on this weekend. See you then.